A taxi driver's story, the night passenger. I have been working as a taxi driver in this city for a good 15 years. I have seen it all: drunk students, lovers who can't tear themselves away from each other, businessmen shouting into their phones as if they ruled the world. But one night, about a year ago, still sticks in my mind. It was the strangest ride of my life, and I still don't know what to think about it. Sit back, I'll tell you about it. It was late autumn, around mid-November. It was cold and damp, and the rain was pouring down so hard that the street cleaners could barely keep up. I was sitting in my old Skoda, parked near the train station, drinking coffee from a thermos and listening to the radio. There weren't many orders, as it was nighttime. Around 2 in the morning, an order came in through the app. The passenger called a taxi from some obscure alley a couple of blocks from the bank on the central square. It was a strange place, but I'm not one to ask unnecessary questions. I drove up, my headlights illuminating the silhouette of a person under an umbrella. The man was of medium height, wearing a dark raincoat with the hood pulled up so that his face was almost invisible. He sat in the back seat and muttered quietly, "To the outskirts, to 17, Lisna Street." His voice was calm, but somehow, strained, as if he was trying to sound relaxed. I nodded, turned on the meter, and drove off. It was quiet in the car, except for the rain drumming on the roof. I usually like to chat with passengers to lighten the mood, but this guy didn't look like he wanted to talk. He sat staring out the window, holding a small sports bag on his lap. The bag was old and worn, but something about it made me nervous. It looked heavy, even though the passenger held it as if his life depended on it. The road to Lisna was long, about 40 minutes across the city. I decided to try to strike up a conversation with him anyway. "It's cold today, isn't it? And this damn rain," I said, glancing in the rearview mirror. He just muttered something indistinct and pulled his hood even deeper over his head. I shrugged and turned on the radio. The news was on. Tonight, unknown individuals robbed the central bank on Freedom Square. The perpetrators took a significant amount of cash. The exact amount is not being disclosed. The police have already. I turned off the radio. I don't like it when they talk about crime in the car. It makes the passengers nervous. But then I noticed that my passenger was strangely tense. His hands gripped his bag tighter, and in the mirror I saw him glance quickly at me. I pretended not to notice, but my mind was already racing. The central bank, the alley where I picked him up was literally around the corner from that bank. And that bag. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Where are you coming from?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He paused and then replied, "From work. I was late." His voice was steady, but I sensed he was lying. What office is open until 2 in the morning? And why did he call a taxi from some dark alley instead of a business center? I decided not to press the issue. In our line of work, asking too many questions can cost you tips, or even get you into trouble. The road stretched on. The rain didn't let up. The city was asleep. Only neon signs flickered in the darkness. I noticed that the passenger kept looking back, as if checking to see if anyone was behind us. Once he even asked me to turn onto another street, saying he wanted to avoid traffic jams. Traffic jams? At 2 in the morning? I nodded and turned. Although I felt that something was wrong, my stomach churned, as if something bad was about to happen. Finally, we arrived at Lisna Street. It's a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts, mostly private houses, old apartment buildings, and abandoned warehouses. The house at number 17 turned out to be an old 2-story mansion surrounded by a high fence. The windows were dark, no lights on. It looked like no one lived there. The passenger asked me to stop around the corner, 100 meters from the house. "This is fine," he said and started rummaging through his pockets, looking for his wallet. I named the amount, and he handed me a few bills, cash, which was strange in itself, because most people have been paying through apps for a long time. As he handed me the money, I noticed that his hands were shaking, and something else. He was wearing an expensive watch with a gold bracelet on his wrist, not the kind of accessory you'd expect to see on someone driving an old Skoda at this time of night. I thanked him. He nodded and got out, clutching his bag tightly, but instead of going home, he headed in the opposite direction, toward a dark alley between warehouses. I sat in the car, watching him go, and thought, what the hell? I was about to drive off when I saw blue lights flashing in the mirror. A police car. It was driving slowly down the street, as if looking for something. I felt a rush of heat. I quickly turned off the headlights and pressed myself against the steering wheel so as not to attract attention. The police drove by without stopping, but I could feel my heart pounding. Could this guy really be? I sat there for another 10 minutes, trying to collect my thoughts. Then I turned on my phone and opened the local news. It was already full of headlines: bold bank robbery. Police search for suspects. Millions stolen. My throat went dry. Millions. A bag. The alley near the bank. Shaking hands. Everything fit. But I couldn't believe I had just driven a robber. The next few days I was on pins and needles. The news said that the police were looking for 2 men, but there were no details about their appearance. The bank's cameras probably didn't catch them, or they were wearing masks. I thought about going to the police and telling them about the passenger several times, but what could I say? I drove a guy with a bag. He seemed nervous. I had no evidence, and I didn't want to get involved in such matters. In our city, the police are not always friendly to witnesses. A week later, I found myself in the Lisna district again. I decided to drive past that house, just out of curiosity, and you know what? The house looked the same, dark, abandoned, with an overgrown yard. I even knocked on the gate, but no one answered. The neighbors said that no one had lived there for 5 years, so where was he going, and what was in that bag? Since then, I often think about that night. Maybe he wasn't a robber. Maybe he was just a nervous guy with his own problems. But that watch, that bag, that alley, it all keeps bothering me. I still check the news to see if those robbers have been caught, but it's as if they've disappeared. Sometimes I joke to myself that maybe I'm giving a ride to one of them again when I pick up a night passenger. But to be honest, I hope I never see that guy in the hoodie again. In this job, there are some trips that make you want to go home and just forget about them. But this story will stay with me forever.